Midweek has already arrived. The markets is still awaiting clarity of what exactly happened between US and China. We'll take you through all of that over the next 30 minutes. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. I'm Hormus Patakia. With me as always is Vamakshi Doria. Vamakshi, good morning. We are where we were last morning as well, still awaiting what exactly transpired between the US and China. But it is an important session for our own markets as well.
Well, absolutely, Hormus. So near, yet so far, because the discussions have been termed as productive, but we still don't have any, complete clarity on the same, so we'll have to wait by for that. So let's see what today's session holds out. Let's start off with the top headlines then. Stocks on Wall Street climb as investors hoped for a positive resolution on US-China trade discussions. After a second day of talks in London, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq clocked gains for the third straight session.
Markets in the Asia-Pacific rise after U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick termed talks between the U.S. and China as productive. Meanwhile, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a flat to positive start for our own markets as well.
Crude oil prices continue to hold near 7-week high on the back of global cues. Meanwhile, gold prices hold steady as U.S.-China trade discussions continue.
India and the US have discussed market access, digital trade, technical barriers in trade talks. According to government sources, the countries are working towards doubling bilateral trade to $500 billion, aiming to sign the first tranche of a comprehensive multi-sector trade agreement by October of 2025.
World Bank cuts India's growth projection by 40 basis points to 6.3% for FY26 as it expects global growth to slow to 2008 levels of 2.3% due to rising trade barriers and policy uncertainty.
Well, even as the Asian markets are trading with gains, but the Dow futures, though, are sulking. And that's, of course, because of the fact that despite saying that they have reached a broad consensus to implement the Geneva Agreement, there is no significant clarity that has emerged from the talks between the US and China. But despite that, the Asian screen is pretty positive as of now. The Shanghai Composite, the Chinese markets are trading with gains of 0.5%. The Taiwanese index is also trading with gains of 0.5%. The Hang Seng is up 0.7% as we speak. The Kospi continues to outperform, is now heading towards its highest level in over 3 years now. So almost 0.4% higher on the Kospi as well. Similar gains coming in for the Nikkei in Japan. So it's a positive screen that the Asian markets are projecting as of now, despite the Dow futures being down 100 as we speak. Pull up the GIFT Nifty as well. That'll give you an idea of how our own markets are likely to start off. Well, after gaining for 5 straight days, the implied open is suggesting a 6th day of higher opening at least. They're suggesting a 24-point uptick as of now. But even after this news emerged after market closing, the regular session on Wall Street was a pretty positive one, Vamakshi.
Well, absolutely, Hormas. It was a good session as far as all 3 major indices are concerned. In the US market overnight, Wall Street ended higher for the third straight session as traders hope for progress on US-China trade talks. CNBC's Courtney Regan gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street. Listen in.
U.S. markets were up across the major indexes in Tuesday trading, despite a warning from the World Bank about global economic growth. The Dow added 105, the S&P 500 was up 33, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained 124. The World Bank on Tuesday cut its global economic growth projections, saying that trade uncertainty weighed on the outlook. It now expects the global economy to expand by 2.3% this year, which would be the slowest rate of global growth since the financial crisis in 2008, and predicted the U.S. to expand 1.4%, half the rate of growth seen last year. And Mark Zuckerberg is reportedly making a new push to achieve artificial general intelligence. According to Bloomberg, the Meta CEO has been frustrated with his company's progress in the AI race so far and is putting together what's being called a super intelligence group inside Meta with the goal of beating other tech companies to the point where AI can perform as well as humans. Bloomberg reports Zuckerberg is personally recruiting dozens of people for the effort. A source also tells CNBC that Meta is investing nearly $15 billion for a 49% stake in startup Scale AI. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
Courtney, thanks a lot for that comprehensive wrap of what happened on Wall Street. Now, despite the uncertainty amidst the tariff situation and trade wars, Goldman Sachs' chief U.S. equity strategist believes that the market will deliver 9 to 10% returns over the next 12 months. Listen in.
Well, near term, there is some concern about the tariff uncertainty, but People generally optimistic on the prospect that that's going to be resolved in a positive way. And so longer term expectation is the market rises maybe 9% or so, high single digit, maybe 10% when you include dividends over the next year. But near term, there's some uncertainty, and not surprising, the market has rebounded pretty significantly off of its low in early April.
While US and China reach consensus on trade following a second day of high-level talks in London, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says that the two countries have now reached a framework to implement the Geneva Consensus. Let's listen in.
We have reached a framework to implement the Geneva Consensus and the call between the two presidents, right? So that was on June 5th. So we've combined those two. We've reached a framework for implementation. Now the process will be, we're both going to go back. We, Ambassador Greer, myself, and Scott Bessent, who just left a little earlier, which you saw, because he's testifying tomorrow on the Hill. So the idea is we're going to go back and speak to President Trump and make sure he approves it. They're going to go back and speak to President Xi and make sure he approves it. And if that is approved, we will then implement the framework that we have worked hard over these last 2 days. Obviously, the team stayed at it until it was done late into the evening. Absolutely expect that the topic of rare earth minerals and magnets with respect to the United States of America will be resolved in this framework implementation. That is a fundamental part of that. Also, there were a number of measures the United States of America put on when those rare earths were not coming. You should expect those to come off sort of, as President Trump said, in a balanced way. When they approve the licenses, then you should expect that our export implementation will come down.
Maybe, just maybe, the street was awaiting a little more than just an approval of the Geneva trade agreement, and that's why the Dow futures maybe are still sulking this morning. Meanwhile, former CEA chairman Jason Ferman told CNBC that he thinks China will have an upper hand in the US-China talks and that the US will end up in a worse place than it was before in these conversations.
China has a lot of cards here because we need those rare earths for our industries. We don't have a lot of cards. And so, yeah, the talks are going well, but it looks like they're going well because we're going to give up potentially some of the Biden-era restrictions on exporting chips to China, restrictions that made a lot of sense for our national security, and in exchange for what? Just to get back to the place we were a few months ago. So we might, as a result of this negotiation, end up in a worse place vis-a-vis China than where we started the Trump administration.
Well, that's all the global market action, but how will all of these overnight cues impact our own Indian markets? We now have our research team joining in with how the trade setup looks like and the stocks that are likely to be in the news. First up, we have Vivek joining in to get us all the market cues we need to watch out for today. Good morning, Vivek. Yesterday was a listless session. What does today hold out?
That's right. Good morning. Largely, looking at the overnight queue, especially as far as US markets are concerned, largely positive, largely flat, no negative news flow coming in, and that helped the markets move higher. Tesla too moved higher in yesterday's trading session. Oil markets or oil prices yesterday ended marginally lower, largely flattish, but ended with a negative bias is how you could mainly describe how the oil market movement was seen. As far as the Indian markets yesterday was concerned, like I mentioned, largely listless, but the Nifty continued to manage to scale higher and moved higher for the fifth straight trading session. Yesterday, the important story to watch was the fact that the Nifty banking index from record highs did see a bit of profit booking come about. What moved or what dragged the Nifty bank lower was mainly the mid-cap banking pack, and the mid-cap banking pack, remember, has seen a stellar rally yesterday that saw about a profit booking, especially in names like RBL Bank. The other set of stocks that did very well in the session was the Nifty IT pack, and within that, the mid-cap IT space, especially names like Coforge, did very well in the trading session yesterday. GIFT Nifty, Asian markets, all of them indicating a positive start for our markets today.
Looking like a flat to positive start. The implied open was suggesting a 24-point uptake. It's now down to 10 points. So keep an eye out on how do we start off in today's session, whether we do gain for the sixth day in a row. Vivek, thanks a lot for that. Over to Upasna now. We'll list out the stocks that you need to keep an eye out for today. Upasna, good morning. What's on your list?
Good morning. First up, let me start with Wipro. The company extends its partnership with Metro AG for an additional 2 years. Next is Vodafone Idea. VI launches 5G services in Bengaluru. And mind you that the company rolls out 5G services in all 17 priority circles by August 2025. Next up is alcohol stocks such as Radico Khaitan and United Spirits. These will be in focus as Maharashtra government hikes excise duty on IMFL by 50 to 60% according to the reports. Credit Access Grameen is the next one as the company secures $100 million multi-currency syndicated social loan facility. Next is Texmaco Rail and Engineering. The company gets an order from Mumbai Railway Vikas Corporation of nearly about 44 crores. Hence, this will be in focus. Next is Keynes Technology. Company's arm, that is Keynes Semicon, signs asset purchase agreement with Japan's Fujitsu General Electronics for nearly about 1.59 billion yen. Next is Maruti Suzuki. According to sources to CNBC TV 18, the commercial launch of e-Vitara in India is likely to be delayed. And lastly, coming to AB Capital, according to sources, Advent International is likely to sell 1.4% stake via block deal. And the total block size is around 856 crores and the floor price is around 237 per share. So all in all, we'll be looking out for all these stocks in focus today.
Well, thank you so much for that, Upasna. And finally, we now have Sudarshan joining in with cues from the F&O space. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mamangshi. So it was a range-bound day of trade as expected. At the end, good part was Nifty held on to levels for 25,100, while minor profit booking was seen in the banking space. For today, also GIFT Nifty is indicating a flat start. On the flows front, the data is not looking that bad. In the cash market, we saw both FIs and DIs. Buying FIs bought more than rupees 2,300 crore. DIs also have bought more than rupees 1,100 crore. Even in the index futures too, FIs have bought more than rupees 560 crore. Also, they have reduced long position, but the reduction is very less. It's just 130. But at the same time, they have reduced short positions of almost 3,000 contracts. And FI's long exposure remains around 20%. On the option front, action remains above 25,000 levels. 25,200 call has seen addition of 32 lakh shares. Similar addition was seen for 25,150. On the put side, 25,100 put also has seen addition of nearly 19 lakh shares, and 25,050 put has seen addition of more than 11 lakh shares. Support for Nifty remains around 24,830, that is 20-day moving average, and resistance remains around 25,230, that is the recent high. Two stocks have entered the band. First one is Ireda and second one is RBL. Apart from these two, Titagar, AB Fashion, Chamal Fertilizer and Hindustan Copper remain in the band.
6 stocks in the F&O band today, including names like Ireda. Sudarshan, thanks a lot for that. Take a short break. On the other side, we bring the spotlight on Maruti Suzuki, who has cut its near-term EV production target. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Well, a Reuters news break reveals that Maruti Suzuki's big launch for the year, the e-Vitara's production, may be delayed on the back of the rare earth magnet crisis. Parikshit gets us more on this front. Parikshit?
Yes, Maruti Suzuki clearly feeling the heat as a result of China's export curbs on rare earth magnets. The big launch for them this year was the electric Vitara. They had showcased the e-Vitara with great fanfare at the Auto Expo. The plan was to start exports and have a commercial launch in India probably between July and August. All of that could be delayed right now because of the export curbs. And there is not enough stock of rare earth magnets to make the e-Vitaras, as many e-Vitaras as was planned earlier. We hear from sources that the company had an initial plan in April to make 88,000 electric Vitaras. That outlook was earlier slashed to 67,000. For the period between April and September, the company had a plan to make 26,500 electric Vitaras. Because of the current magnet crisis, that outlook has been slashed to 8,200 electric cars only. What Maruti hopes is to make up for the loss of production from October onwards. So they feel that the production can be adjusted and somehow the company will still manage to meet its revised production outlook for the e-Vitara at 67,000 units in the full fiscal year FY26. But for the moment, clearly there is a problem. We've been told by sources that the start of production has not been deferred. Production is taking place of the e-Vitara, but in small quantities, and perhaps this will be only for addressing the export market initially.
Parikshit, thanks a lot for that. We'll keep an eye out on Maruti Suzuki today. The stock had ended at the lowest point of the day yesterday. It'll be interesting to see how it reacts this morning. Now, the World Bank has cut India's growth forecast for FY26 and FY27, projecting growth acceleration being imminent from FY28. However, the report has highlighted that India is estimated to maintain the fastest growth rate among the world's largest economies. The World Bank also expects global growth to slow to levels of 2008, which is at 2.3%, excluding the recession, citing rising trade barriers and policy uncertainties as its key factors. On that note, we take a break here on Power Breakfast. On the other side, cues from the commodity space. Manish Gupta joins in. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and as promised, Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. What is on your radar today?
Well, some consolidation really, because as we've seen the global equity markets run up, the commodity markets really seem to be staying within the ranges. Crude oil prices should come in on your screens because we've seen prices hold around 7-week highs onto this one. The focus clearly and squarely is on US-China trade talk as it enters day 2. And with the fact that the Canada also is entered direct tariff talks with US, the markets really are looking at some positive cues continuing. The most important thing to watch out today is going to be the US May CPI inflation data. That would tell you or give you an immediate direction, really. A softer inflation outcome could drag US dollar lower and could support many of these commodities yet again. Not just about the crude oil prices, but the precious metals also seem to be trading quite steady right now. As I said, the focus is going to be on the US inflation numbers. The silver prices, after that initial run-up of nearly 6 to 7 trading sessions, also seem to be just about holding around its 13-year highs. $37 an ounce is a resistance right now for the silver prices. Some profit taking is what we've also seen in case of copper prices. It fell 1% overnight. The weak China industrial data seems to be weighing onto the market. But having said that, the U.S. copper continues to trade at a premium of almost $1,000 a ton to LME today.
Well, thank you so much for that, Manisha. So largely commodities holding steady. But moving on then, the much anticipated launch of the Axiom 4 mission to the International Space Station has been postponed due to a technical snag, according to a statement by SpaceX. The delay in the mission comes due to a leak identified during post-static fire booster inspections. The new dates of the mission will be announced soon.
And on that note, we call time on this edition of Power Breakfast. From Amakshimi and the team that put this show together, thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call sets you up for the day ahead.